Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me and the show on all the places, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, at Hawk Blogger. And on this Sunday morning, where we already have NFL football being played in Ireland, we're going to do a quick show because I wasn't sure I was going to do a show today. And then Jeff, got my pal Jeff Simmons here. We get a report from Ian Rapoport that reads this. With Seahawks star Devin Witherspoon returning on Thursday, teams are monitoring Pro Bowl cornerback Riq Woolen as a possible trade target by the deadline, sources tell the insiders. Woolen's playing time has diminished, and in a contract year, teams believe he could be available. Good morning, Jeff.
always an interesting start when we're supposed to have like a calm off day.
I mean, first of all, how awesome is it to have a Sunday that's stress-free as a Seahawks fan? They've won. We just get to watch everybody else fight, and we just sit back and enjoy.
Oh, there's few things better right now. Coming off the win on Thursday. Now we just get to sit back, calm day, don't have to stress, don't have to get upset, and can just watch football all day and keep my legs up. And there's a few things better in the world right now.
Yeah. So tell me, when you saw this report, what was your interpretation?
So my interpretation was that's clearly a plant from someone. And my question was, and I saw you tweet out your answer, but my question was, did that come from the team because they want to get a market, or did that come from Woolen's camp because they want to generate a market to get out of there? And so I think no matter what it is, I think it's trending towards the same end result. I think either Tariq's camp or the Seahawks see they have enough depth. That was planted to generate a trade.
I got to go grab something real quick. For based on what you just said, what do you think I have a strong opinion, but I want to know what you think the source is of this.
So usually when it comes out like that, it's typically from the team and they're trying to generate a market. And I know it's crazy. I know you think they can just send a blast email or a call, but I remember when Stephon Diggs was traded and a report like that, this was years ago, a report like that came out and he was traded that evening. Now, I don't expect the trade to happen today, but John and his staff, they know how to play the game and they know exactly what they're doing. So if this came from them, it makes sense. So when a report comes out, one of the things I always try to coach people on and is that's not just Ian Rapoport doing great journalism or something. It's not a shot at Ian. This is the nature of their insider job. When those reports come out, they're put out for a reason. Somebody wants it out there. When anything from Schefter or Rapoport comes out, it's because somebody is motivated to get that out there. The logical explanation, I think I know where Brian's going to go with this, is that the team's seen enough. And I thought it was obviously very telling when Brady Henderson did a show with Brian this offseason, and they ranked the likelihood of an extension. Woolen got a 1 out of 10 from Brady. And hasn't had great moments in 2 of the 4 games. So I think the logical explanation, but it wouldn't even be surprising if it was his camp that sees the writing on the wall, that sees all these corners. They know he's not going to get extended. Maybe they want to go back. But I think if I had to guess, it would absolutely be the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 2 most likely sources of this are the team or Riq Woolen's agent. Right?
That's what I said.
Yeah, I mean, I heard. I was able to still hear you even I wasn't here. But I think those are the 2 most likely, and I think it's the team. Wouldn't be surprised if it's the agent. And to your point, yes, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. That was, early. That was not me reporting it, but I was surprised, Jeff, that after one game, first game of the season, the coaching staff was already ready to demote Riq Woolen.
Yeah.
That does not happen with a player that you are committed to. It just doesn't. You stick with them. You weeks go by. Many things happen before you talk about demoting a starting player, especially a young player. And so that was, to me, that was like a big eye opener. And then when I had the conversation with Brady, that was surprising. So it doesn't sound like they're planning on bringing him back. and then they make that move. One more thing I'd add is I don't know that Riq has always handled these situations that well. Like, I think he tends to be kind of quiet, not speak to the media, comes across as sulking. I don't necessarily think it's that, but I think that all those things combined are like, well, if they're going to make this public display of them not being committed to him, also knowing what he could potentially be like in that locker room and that they're not committed to him long term, you got to flip the guy, because otherwise you might get a third round comp pick in 2027, but why would you keep him all season? Like, it didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I get that perspective, and I thought that reaction after week 1 was super telling, because I thought you made a really good point on the other day where this is a guy that a lot of coaches would be happy to try to coach and try to develop and work from these situations. And I guess hearing from Brady, there's always been questions of whether he's been a McDonald guy. I think McDonald, the kind of players he's brought in, are very high IQ, really smart, they're Julian Love, Ernest Jones. And I'm not saying Woolen's not smart or anything, but it's the people they've paid and the people they've been excited, Jaron Reed, seem like McDonald guys. Woolen is a talent that I'm not sure fits the McDonald kind of culture of who he wants. From this year's perspective, though, it leaves them in an interesting spot if they trade him. Like, they don't have a ton of outside corner depth, but I think if you can see the writing on the wall, starting with that Brady thing to this, and now I'd be surprised if there's not a trade.
All right. Well, so I related to also what I just said, the other piece that I think has started to drop to make this even more logical for the team, Derion Kendrick played really well. And to your point, Jeff, the disparity between how Mike McDonald talked about Derion Kendrick and how he's talked about Riq Woolen was like jarring, right? It was, man, he's recognizing things that coaches love. He knows what the splits are. He's like in the right place. Like, Mike was pretty effusive about intangible things that Derion Kendrick does. And you've got Shaquille Griffin that's just waiting in the wings. And you got Devin Witherspoon, and Josh Jobe has emerged as a really good player. Feels like they've got some depth. Now, we can have a separate conversation about whether this will work out for the Seahawks or not. I personally have a lot of concern that this will be a bigger problem than people expect to move on from Riq Woolen. But this show is going to be about, okay, let's assume that they do it.
Yeah.
Who are some possible targets? I want to introduce a couple that we haven't talked about, and I want to hear from you what you have. So I know everybody in the world has been sending me the Anthony Bradford video. Yes, I have seen it. You can stop sending me the video. You can assume that I've seen it probably 5 times by the time you decide to send it to me. So yes, I've seen it. I have a lot of thoughts on that video, by the way, and I'm not going to get into it, but I will say it could make sense that they'd look at adding a veteran guard. They just added Shane Lemieux to their practice squad. So what's to say that they wouldn't potentially look to add a veteran guard there? And there's a couple names we've talked about in the past that might be available. And I go first to Wyatt Teller and Joel Bitonio in Cleveland. Cleveland's in a nothing year. And if I look at the top graded guards, at least by PFF, for whatever that's worth, Wyatt Teller is 25. Joel Bitonio is 9. He is a 73 graded guard right now, 71 run block, 70.9 pass block. And both of them on their last year, their deals. And they're both probably going to retire, or like they're not long-term answers for Cleveland. So would Cleveland potentially want a young corner that they could potentially keep long-term if things work out, over aging guards that are not part of their long-term solution?
And they certainly have a ton of draft picks. They got all that package from Travis Hunter last year. So they have an extra first this year. And I don't imagine there's a lot of guys they have big extensions to. And really, if you look at the strength of the team right now, it's absolutely their defense. So I think putting in a corner like that with that kind of defensive talent around him, it could make sense. I don't know if they'll pay Woolen. It just seems kind of weird in Cleveland to pay him. Because what do you think his price is worth now in the market? Like $25 million a year?
Probably.
I'd have to look at their cap situation and their cash and who they have to spend, but they're not going to be paying a quarterback. They have a big draft class coming in. They're a very young team. So, yeah, one of those, again, most of their resources should go towards defense right now as they get younger on offense. And, yeah, one of those guards would make sense, but you just don't see teams trade offensive linemen midseason almost ever. I know the Dwayne Brown trade happened. That I can't think of any other year where like a quality offensive lineman got traded in the season.
Yeah, I mean, the reason this could make sense to me is just because of their contract situations and their age and where they fit in the plans for the team. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's crazy that those guys could be part of it. There aren't a lot of other guards to me that jump out, like John Simpson maybe for the Jets, depending on where the Jets think they are. Simpson is in the last year of his deal as well. Jets lost DJ Reed. They've got
Sauce and Woolen would be a hilarious combo.
Sauce and Woolen, I think, could make some sense. So, what about you? What comes to mind for you as potential trade targets?
I think you got to start with the Raiders. I think Pete Carroll knows that guy inside and out. He's more of a Pete Carroll guy than a John guy. They're not playing great on defense, especially last week. If I think of anyone who wants to add some talent in the building, we've seen they brought in Geno, they brought in Jamal Adams, they brought in even Stone Forsythe. I think you got to start there. One team I heard some buzz on this morning, and the Eagles are a team that they're missing a corner. And if I'm the Seahawks, I don't give them Riq Woolen, no matter what unless they offer you like a crazy package, because they're one corner short right now, and Adoree Jackson's been a nightmare. And if you put Woolen in, that can really solve the missing part of their defense. I don't want to ever make a trade with Howie Roseman. I don't trust him. I would never do it. Watching the Vikings right now as well, they're kind of missing a big outside corner. I think him in that Brian Flores system with all that blitz protection and some of the stuff they can do, I think he would be a really good fit there. But I just don't know what their season's going to end up like. The one I'm wondering about, if Cincinnati continues to tail off, and I think they're going to get smoked by Denver this week. I think that's a really rough game for them. They don't have a lot of defensive talent. And there might be a very interesting match there, which a bigger picture, which I think could fit Seattle more than a draft pick.
I was hoping you'd take the bait on that, Jeff. I mean, yeah. I left the juicy one for you. We've talked about Trey Hendrickson. We've talked about Trey Hendrickson, and everything I know from in and around the team was they weren't interested in making that deal in the preseason. It wasn't even a consideration. I don't think they were interested in making the Parsons deal. I don't think that was a consideration either. People can agree or disagree with whether that's a good choice, but that's my understanding of, I think, where things were with the Seahawks organizationally. I think things have changed. And that's not a report. So I don't have confirmation or a source that's telling me different, but I do have some sense that things have shifted. And the reason why, one, Hendrickson's in the building on a deal just for this year, which, again, people need to remember that John Schneider does not extend players when he trades for them midseason. So that was going to be a barrier. If Hendrickson wasn't going to report to the Bengals without a new contract, the Seahawks probably weren't going to sign him to a new contract either. That's a problem. So now he's in and there's a contract. Two, the Seahawks got their first sack from an edge rusher Thursday from Uchenna Nwosu. And that's not great. Even though the edges, Mafe and Hall have been playing reasonably well, it's not great. Three, they've had trouble closing games. What do you need to close games?
An edge rusher.
An edge rusher, a great edge rusher. And I think part of their hesitation with Hendrickson as well is he's not a good run defender. He's just not. Yeah. And this is a team that values both in their edges. But that, and the last thing I think that's happened is I think they believe that they can contend. I think in that building they've seen enough. I think they thought that going into the season. I think it's part of why the first week was so upsetting to them.
Yeah.
Not just to us. I think all of those things combined, I think they see an opportunity. And I don't think they'll be alone in potentially checking in on Hendrickson, because the 49ers with Bosa out probably are doing the same thing. So I think that would make a lot of sense from the Seahawks standpoint. I don't know if the Bengals would be interested in a player trade as opposed to, a lot of draft picks. I still think you'd probably have to include maybe a second or at least a third.
So you would have to give a second and Woolen to get Hendrickson?
I'm just thinking about it from a Bengals standpoint. I get it that that's
an
overpay.
Big cash outlays, and they just,
but like they're in a rebuilding mode essentially this season with Burrow out. Do they really need a different defensive player on their team? Like, I don't think that's that valuable to them. I think the draft picks are what are valuable, but for the Seahawks, it might be maybe they get to give a third round pick instead of a second because they include a play.
Yeah, or you could do 2 trades and trade a draft pick for Hendrickson and then recoup that with a Woolen trade. So it does give them some flexibility there.
Exactly. That's a fair point too. They could flip Woolen.
Yeah. Like, what do you think Woolen would get in a trade right now? Assuming it's not a player, just assuming it's a straight player for pick trade.
Oh.
Because
I think whenever you're
probably looking at a 3rd to 4th round comp in 2027.
Yeah, I think that whenever you're in a situation that you're selling and teams know that you want to get rid of a player,
what I mean.
You're selling at a low value. So I think 4th is where I'd probably start.
That's where I was gonna guess. I was gonna guess a 4th, but it's usually like a round down a year earlier, kind of evens out. And the comp 3rd is basically a 4th anyway. Everyone spent so much time on those. Go look at the 49ers comp picks in the last 7 years. They've missed on basically all of them. So yeah, if you can get a 4th a year earlier, where I think they've already traded a pick that year, they're not going to sign them. I kind of get that one.
Yeah, I think that would be I would be pretty critical of them trading Riq Woolen for a 4th round pick.
Well, yeah, you made your case pretty clearly the other day that they should be trying to fix this guy. The thing that would make a lot of people uncomfortable is they become a much smaller cornerback group if they do that trade.
And slower.
Slower, smaller. Yeah, they have Shaq Griffin, but I think Shaq Griffin is kind of a 4th corner at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone gets hurt, you're fully all in on Shaq Griffin at that point to play the 3 corners, unless even Morey can cover up a lot. And I don't know how that factors in. Maybe that size, speed, they think they can use him in some creative ways. I'd probably just keep him for the rest of the year as insurance, unless you can get a great deal.
And here's the thing. I think they're worried about keeping him. I think they're worried.
The vibe in the room.
Yeah. Like, they've got such a good thing going in there. And if he is going to, I really like Riq Woolen. I've been clear on this. I like him as a person. I like him as a player. I understand why people are down on him, frustrated. I think I understand all that. Before Mike Macdonald coached his first game, you and I talked. I said I thought Riq Woolen didn't match Mike Macdonald's corner type. Like, I thought they would potentially trade him before the first game ever played.
You did.
That didn't happen. They stuck with them. They saw something. Leslie Frazier, whatever. I think that's all flipped. But now I don't know if this is a guy that they just want to roll with. And I don't think that they believe if they're really considering benching him, which, by the way, consider they're on their mini bye. They're doing self-scouting right now. If they're looking at each other as coaches and being like, man, we can't have Derion Kendrick sitting on the bench. Like, this doesn't make sense. And Riq is struggling. We need to give him something. Like, the timing of this report lines up with all of that. Then I feel like they might feel a pressure to get him moved. And so for me, I'm like really thinking about what could be the destinations and what could be the return. I think they'd be looking for a player return, not a draft pick return, because of what we just said. I think the draft pick return would be super depressed from his actual value.
Yeah.
But the player return, if you get the right place, could be reasonable. So you started with Pete Carroll. Of any team out there, Pete Carroll knows his value, knows how to use him, right?
Well, I'm looking at 2026 cap space because I assume if you're going to trade for Woolen, you probably want to try to sign him, unless it just comes to you and you. The Raiders have 95 million of cap space, which is second in the league next year, and again, they don't have a lot of cash outlays coming because they're kind of an older roster. They've drafted pretty poorly over the years, so they don't have a lot of guys to extend anytime soon. Woolen's a guy I think they would target in free agency, so I think they still make a ton of sense. I'm looking at the other teams on this list that have a lot of cap room. The Chargers, I don't see Jim Harbaugh being a fit for him at all. Titans, I could see maybe. The Titans don't have a lot of good young players as well. That's a team that's not drafted particularly well. But again, they're looking like a last place team this year. They're not looking particularly good. And they always, for whatever reason, tend to add older players. I don't know if the Commanders, Dan Quinn, Adam Peters, I don't know what their corner situation's like, but they've added a lot of older players over the years.
It's true.
They have a lot of money. The Bengals have 52 million in cap space next year, which is in like the top 10. And Hendrickson's the guy that no one thought they'd pay. Maybe they are willing to pay Woolen, but they're a team that doesn't like giving out a lot of cash. They don't like spending a lot on free agency. They just paid Higgins, Burrow, and Chase. One of the reasons they didn't want to pay Hendrickson is they didn't want to pay that. They didn't want to pay guaranteed money beyond 1 year. So, but they do have the cap if they want to make that move. The Eagles are up there, but there's a big drop off after the Bengals. It goes like into like 20 million less in space. So I said the Vikings, they're like 50 million over the cap next year. So that's not happening. Yeah, I think then the Jets are 60 million over the cap.
So, I mean, but when we talk about the Raiders, who would be the targets? I mean, for me, when we talked about it a couple weeks ago, I said Jacoby Myers, the receiver, because he had asked out, he wanted to be traded. And they've got a couple of young guys in Dante Thornton and Jack Besh. They've got, obviously, the other guy that they have is Michael Mayer, the tight end, because they've got Brock Bowers.
Yeah. For the Raiders, I don't think you're getting a player. I think you'd have to hope that they do something stupid. Like they traded a 5th-round pick for Kenny Pickett a couple weeks ago. Like you got to hope that they would pay you the 3rd or something.
Yeah. I mean, if one of those players was available, would you be interested?
Who is it again? Jacoby Myers?
Jacoby Myers at receiver or Michael Mayer at tight end?
I would do it for Michael Mayer. I like Michael Mayer.
Yeah, so then I can't see the team doing that really.
I think the Raiders like Michael Mayer a lot too. I think their 2 tight end package is a big part of what they're doing. So I think if it's the Raiders, you're getting a pick. I don't see a match. I think they need Myers because Jack Besh is not playing and he's not doing much.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of young receivers, and I know that he wants more money, but I don't think they're in a position. Their whole team is offense right now.
Yeah, I mean, and people are like, what about offensive linemen? They're not going to give up an offensive lineman. Like
they also have the worst offensive lines in the league.
Yeah, they're struggling on the offensive line, and they're not going to like take anyone that's at all decent and do that. So,
no.
But Pete Carroll will value Riq Woolen more than probably.
That's what I would figure.
And then the other places that we talked about Hendrickson. I brought up before New York, the Giants. So it's not because I think they'd value him necessarily from a coaching standpoint, but they do have Kayvon Thibodeau. And that's a surplus. He's in the last year of his deal. It's the same draft as Woolen. They could flip Woolen for Thibodeau. They probably have a bigger need for corner than they do long-term than for edge rusher, given that they just drafted Abdul Carter and they've got Brian Burns. That could make some sense.
That's a really smart idea, actually. It depends what kind of outlook because they're going to try to build around Jackson Dart. And if Jackson Dart doesn't have a good season, everyone might get fired there. But I doubt they're going to re-sign Thibodeau with all the money they have invested at that spot with Lawrence and Carter. That's a logical trade. And I remember someone said the Seahawks weren't super high on Thibodeau coming out, so I'm curious what their perspective would be now with their pro scouting. And obviously it was McDonald versus Pete. But of all the deals that we've kind of talked about, player for player, because I know Deonte Banks, who they drafted pretty high, has not worked out particularly well. and they don't have a long-term corner there. And again, I don't know what their future's like for those guys running the team there, but I think if they're going to potentially lose a guy, people are going to be intrigued by Woolen's skill set, his size, speed, potential. Is every coach is going to want to get their hands on him. So I think of all the things we talked about, that might be one of the more logical ideas.
Yeah, the only thing that for me doesn't check out is they're not really in anything interesting. Although maybe they believe they are because of the Jackson Dart change, and maybe if they play well this week, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, what we need is a better corner. Because if I look at their cornerback room, at least for PFF grades, Jeff, it's rough, man.
They have one of the worst corner groups in the league.
Paulson Adebo has a 53.1 coverage grade. Andrew Phillips, 48.9. Cordell Flott is a player in this league, although he does have a 72.5 coverage grade, so give him credit. And Deonte Banks, as you mentioned, a 43.9. So their corners are awful.
Yeah, it's been a big problem. You saw that Dallas game. They couldn't cover anyone. And it's not the strength of their team. And yeah, it's not a crazy idea. It's just their opinion of Thibodeau would have to change dramatically from what I heard coming out of that draft year, where I don't think they were a big fit of his personality.
Yeah, I think I heard similar things. He had a 76. He has a 76 grade right now, 77.5 run defense, which is interesting. Has 12 pressures. So
that's important.
Yeah, I think that could make some sense. I personally, of all the things we've talked about, I think the Hendrickson thing. I don't know if the Bengals will take a player in return. That's the thing that's weird about it. But I think they're going to really check in on Hendrickson. I do.
Well, you can't not watch what happened in Arizona the other night. You talked about it when I came over to your hotel Friday morning. And you can't not watch them and say, man, they need that A-list pass rusher to close games. And again, Leonard Williams has played great, but that's not really what he is. That's not his role. He's a 3 technique. They need that edge rusher to be able to close out games. And you saw it in San Francisco. They couldn't do it there either. And Hendrickson, the whole issue that you mentioned, the run defense, but I imagine the big issue with him was he really wanted a new deal. And all these guys are getting paid. Parsons got paid. Garrett got paid. Crosby got paid. And he's probably like, well, I've been more productive than a lot of those guys. But now that he's got this 1-year deal in place, it at least buys them some time, and it fits John's, what I think, a little bit inane strategy of, but look, he had the Percy Harvin thing. I get it. But now the contract thing is resolved, at least for the short term. I think the Bengals, with the Burrow injury, the situation's changed. They probably thought in their building they were going to compete for a Super Bowl this year. They lost 48-3 to this Vikings team that doesn't look particularly impressive today. And I think they're going to get smoked in Denver. And all of a sudden, they have couple. I think they play Detroit and Green Bay in the next 2 weeks. And with Jake Browning and that offensive line and that defense, they just might be looking at 2-5 very quickly. And all of a sudden, the complexion changes. And you did that deal with them a couple of years ago for Dunlap, and you stole him from them. I think the situation is, the deadline I looked this morning when I saw it's early November. I think this next little 4 or 5 week stretch for the Bengals will really dictate. And I think they might lose almost every game. And if they do, they have no reason to keep Hendrickson along.
Well, a couple other things I want to check in on real quick. So the Ravens defense has been a disaster, right? And is there any chance Baltimore would be looking for another cornerback? They've got Nate Wiggins. They've got Chidobe Awuzie. They've got Marlon Humphrey. Marlon Humphrey's been struggling quite a bit. Maybe. Jair Alexander has been really bad. So maybe. You talked about the Commanders. Is there anyone like that the Seahawks would want in return on the Commanders?
It's a tough fit because they're such an old roster.
Like Frankie Louvu, like would you make a Frankie Louvu move? Because the Seahawks have been looking a little bit at linebacker with
I would do that.
And Knight, and
I don't know if
also an edge rusher.
I think they really value him. Like, he was a priority free agent for them. Dan Quinn's defensive head coach. I'd be pretty surprised for them to get rid of Louvu with Wagner's age.
I mean, Luke is not that young, is he? He's 29.
Probably 27 or 28.
He's 29.
Okay, so he's a little older. Well, he fits their team for sure then. But
yeah, I don't know
they
that
have a weird roster. They're too for having Jane Daniels. They're so old and they don't have like who's ascending on their team. It's Marshawn Lattimore, Zach Ertz, Bobby Wagner, Laramie Tunsil, Von Miller, Debo Samuel.
Yeah, I don't see anybody, man. That feels like a not fit.
No, I don't see it. I don't see Dan Quinn as a Woolen guy either.
Anyone who else are going to be sellers? Let's just take a quick.
Yeah, that's a good question.
A good browse here. Obviously, it's just
Patriots, maybe.
I was wondering about the Patriots because the Patriots do have some interesting names, right? They have been making some trades. They traded one of their high pick last year, the receiver to the Saints. And they have, I mean, they're not going to. There's some guys I would be interested in. I think they probably wouldn't trade, but
they paid Carlton Davis in free agency, and they have Christian Gonzalez making his debut today.
Yep.
So I don't know if there's a third corner there. I don't know if any of those guys can play inside.
Yeah, and I'm looking. I mean, defensively, Harold Landry, didn't they just sign him?
Yeah.
So I don't think that's really an option. I don't think that they're not gonna give up Keon White. That would be amazing, but I don't think they're gonna do that. Offensively, Jeff, I mean, it'd be really fun if they got Jared Wilson. I don't think they're trading him. I don't know who else it would be on the Patriots.
No. Are the Panthers a seller?
I thought that, and that's an interesting one. We should look at their roster because the connection between Dan Morgan and John Schneider, right?
Hey, Damian Lewis is available.
That's not crazy. They've been trying to get their defense to improve.
Yeah.
Now, John Schneider, I can't imagine him eating the L of trading back for Damian Lewis's contract after not one. I think that would be swallowing a big ego item there. But sure, Damian Lewis, Robert Hunt are two guards there.
Robert Hunt's on IR.
For the year?
I don't know, but it's a pretty serious injury from Riot.
Yeah.
They're probably not trading a guard. They're pretty beaten up. Corbett's out, and
yeah. Who else?
Ugh, their team sucks.
I'm looking at their defense to see if there's anyone there. I mean, they're not going to trade Derek Brown. It'd be funny after the Seahawks traded Mike Jackson, who's been playing well for them. I don't see anybody.
No, I don't see any fit either.
I mean, unless they really like Nick Scourton, which I don't think they do. Maybe Bobby Brown, who they just signed. I can't imagine that would make sense. Yeah, I don't see a good fit there.
No, they're very.
That would be a draft pick one, and I think
that would be a draft pick one.
I think they'd want a third round pick at minimum from the Panthers.
Yeah, that would be a great trade.
Right, that would be a high second. It would basically be a low second round.
Basically, it's low second. Yeah.
Yeah. What about the Bears? Would they be a team that like not sellers, but like a buyer because they think that they're maybe in contention?
Could be
for the division, like defensively. Let's take a quick look. I mean, Tyreek Stevenson is a disaster. Nashawn Wright, that could make a lot of sense, dude. I think the Bears would 100% be interested.
Yeah, and I can see him as like a scheme fit for like Ryan Poles.
For sure.
Seems like a guy Ryan
Allen there. So who would the Seahawks potentially want in return? I mean, Jalen Johnson's there, but that's the only
DJ Moore.
You think that they would give up? You think they'd give him up?
There's questions about his long-term fit there because they have Odunze, they drafted Luther Burden, they drafted Colston Loveland.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking. Yeah, I mean that might make some sense. What would you think about that? I mean, I don't love that, but
Well, his contract is massive. He's got like $28 million cap hits for the next 5 years. He's 28 years old. I don't know how well he fits with this offense.
I think he's any offense, dude. He's so good.
But that's the thing. He's a fast guy. If you were going to pay DK the $30 million, maybe him at $28 million or 24 in the next couple of years isn't crushing you.
I think he's a run after a catch guy in a little bit of a different
way.
He
is a run after catch guy. And he's very quick.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the other place that we haven't talked about that we did the first time, we should at least touch on, is the Saints. Rashid Shaheed is in the final year of his deal.
Oh, yeah.
I think that makes a ton of sense, man.
That's a team that makes a lot of sense. I know their cap situation is a constant issue, but like all the beat reporters around them are talking about how they have a really long-term perspective about what's going on there. If you're the Saints and you just have so few building blocks, Woolen is they took a flyer on Jalen Polk, who was like a nothing in his rookie year. If you're the Saints, you should be absolutely taking a flyer on a player of Woolen's talent and seeing if you could stick. And maybe you think Brandon Staley can coach him up, but I thought Olave would be an incredible fit. I think it's less likely they trade him, but Shaheed would be an amazing, and I think you might even be able to get a pick back to complement. I think you might be able to get Shaheed and a pick for Woolen.
Maybe. And I think Olave, to me, is not out of the question. They did sign his 5th-year option, so it makes him less likely to me that he's signed through next year, the same way Charles Cross is.
Yeah.
But the combination of Olave and JSN would be they would be really excited to play together. Olave has concussion concerns, right?
Two last year.
Right. He's had 5, I think, all the way dating back to college. So that's a pretty big concern over there. But I think either one of those guys is a possibility. Juwan Johnson, the tight end, they just re-signed. I don't think that they'd make that move. And then, I mean, it would be amazing if they did it for Eric McCoy, but I just can't see.
Oh my God,
can't see them giving up Eric McCoy. I mean, that would be a home run.
What about how are the guards doing? How's Ruiz doing?
Ruiz has been awful. I actually listened to a podcast before the Saints game about a guy just dedicating the entire show to how he's the worst guard in the NFL. It was ironic because now I'm getting all these things telling me that Anthony Bradford's the worst guard in the NFL, which I have thoughts on.
If John Benton knows him, that would be.
That's the thing. Like maybe they think they could, but I don't think that would be Ruiz and a high pick, like a high-ish pick.
Oh yeah.
So
that might be the most logical, because if you're the Saints, you need to be taking shots at these young guys and hoping you can turn one into a home run.
Okay, I've got another Saints idea.
Okay, let's hear it.
Demario Davis.
Oh, that would be awesome.
He's 36. He's not going to be around that long, so the Saints don't need to keep him. They don't need him this year. He is right now one of the highest graded inside backers in the NFL. He's been rotating Tyrese Knight and Drake Thomas. Put Demario Davis next to Ernest Jones.
You could probably get a draft pick out of that too.
Maybe. I mean, Davis is playing at an elite level.
And and if you're an 0-3 team, like going to be 0-4 today, why do you need a 36-year-old linebacker at an elite level?
Yep.
So that is exactly what you should be selling. And my God, Mike would love that guy.
That would be unreal. Like Davis and Jones, I think they would be a fantastic pairing.
Yeah, that closes one of the biggest holes you have on your team.
I don't think Cam Jordan has got enough juice left to.
I was gonna say he came to mind, but I don't. He's kind of like a worse DeMarcus Lawrence at this point.
Yeah. That name, that's one of the more interesting ones to me.
Well, it fits a lot. It fits very logically.
And they are hurting at cornerback. Like Kool-Aid McKinstry is the town bike right now.
Toast, yeah.
He's getting destroyed. So I think it could make a lot of sense for the Saints to look.
Yeah, if I'm the Seahawks, I'm calling them every week. Checking on Olave, checking on Shaheed, checking on Davis. What
about Miami? We haven't talked. Like I know we said it was gonna be a short show. We'll try to get off so we can watch the end of the game here in a second.
Miami, could you get Jalen Waddle?
Well, so Jalen Waddle's one. What about Jalen Phillips or
Chubb?
Or Chubb?
I don't think they're trading Robinson.
Those could be interesting. They don't want to trade Chop, but Jordan Brooks is a guy that
that would be so funny.
I mean, John does like Jordan Brooks and would have liked to sign him. So I don't think that's as unlikely as Damian Lewis.
Woolen for Jordan Brooks would be one of the funniest trades ever. But like honestly, the Dolphins have the worst cornerback room in the NFL.
Yeah.
And they let all their older corners go. Someone like Woolen is just such a fit for like just being on those bad Miami teams, like living it up. I don't know. I can just see it. But they have an abundance of edge rushers. They have 3, and some of them are old, and they need to shed some money. Waddle's the one I've been wondering about for a while because he's an older player that seems kind of going nowhere. Mike McDaniel might get fired. If you're going to trade a receiver, I don't think it's going to cost that much because his cost is so heavy. Jalen Waddle with JSN would be an unreal compliment, but I think if you can get the defensive help, the edge rusher, that's a very logical target.
Tyreek Hill?
No.
Why not?
Don't think he's a fit for Mike McDonald at all. I don't see him as a John Schneider fit. He feels like he's one bad game away from going full Antonio Brown and just walking off the field. I would not want to trade for him. He terrifies me.
Yeah. I mean, as far as being a bundle of dynamite on offense, though, it'd be...
as a player, he's very exciting, but...
Be a supercharge.
I don't see Mike McDonald and Clint Kubiak bring him into the building.
That's interesting. Well, you could trade for D. Eskridge.
No. Hold
on. What about offensive linemen for them? Let me take a quick look here. Aaron Brewer, the center, is very good. I don't know that they... I
don't know if you're training for a Dolphins offensive lineman.
Fair enough. I'm just looking here. James Daniels out for the year. Daniel Brunskill.
I have to jump off.
Yeah, there's no guards that I think you're trading for. I don't know. I think we touched on a lot, Jeff. Man, those are all. I think there's some viable targets in there. I think this trade's going to happen.
We just went through 7 teams. I think that made sense.
Yeah.
Giants, Saints, Bengals, Dolphins, Raiders. Someone's going to offer them what they want.
Someone in super chat here, DA says,
hold on, I got to jump off.
Has fallen from favor in Las Vegas. Make deal. I don't think they're trading JPJ for Woolen, and I don't think they're going to move off of a guy and would this be his second year, that quickly. So appreciate it, and folks, if you have not already downloaded the Sleeper app, now is a great time to do it. And check this out.
Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using the code HAWKS. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
Download Sleeper. Use code HAWKS to get $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. All right, folks, let's go back and watch some football. Hopefully this gave you some things to chew on as far as possible trade targets for Riq Woolen. I'll be back with you tomorrow. Until then, I'm Brian Nemhauser. This has been another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care, y'all.